If you've ever wanted to own a piece of Hollywood history, now's your chance. A pair of Dorothy's ruby slippers are up for auction. And just like Dorothy, this pair of shoes has been on its own long and very strange journey. Special correspondent Megan Thompson explains for our Arts and Culture series, Canvas.
It's too late. There they are, and there they'll stay.
Dorothy's ruby slippers, some of the most iconic movie memorabilia of all time, worn by actor Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz.
You know, it's such a story of promise and hope. Frank Sinatra said, "We will all be forgotten, all of us, but not Judy." And I think he was right on.
John Kelsch has made preserving Garland's legacy his life's work as the curator of the Judy Garland Museum in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, a small city 3 hours north of Minneapolis.
Judy Garland's parents owned this house for 7 years.
Born Frances Ethel Gumm in 1922, Garland lived here until she was 4 and got her start performing at a local theater. More than 10,000 fans make the trek each year to visit her childhood home and the museum.
The slippers were exhibited on top of this pedestal.
Over the years, the museum displayed a pair of the famous ruby slippers, loaned from a Hollywood memorabilia collector named Michael Shaw. In August 2005, the slippers were at the museum for the 4th time, when everything was shattered.
So he used a handheld sledgehammer.
A thief in the night smashed the glass of a side door and walked right in.
Creeped along this wall like that. We're a small town museum. We had security, but there were many lapses. It was almost a perfect storm, and you might say a comedy of errors.
The door's alarm had been disabled because school children kept tripping it. There were no cameras recording, no motion detectors in the gallery. When Kelsch, museum director at the time, arrived the next morning,
and I said, "Well, there's a sequin."
All that was left was a single sequin on the floor.
You just feel violated, and trust is gone, and our credibility for borrowing other artifacts was destroyed.
When you think of the Wizard of Oz and the magic of the Wizard of Oz, they're going into this far-off fantasy land and they're meeting these weird people. That's what these shoes did in real life in the criminal caper.
Pam Dowell is a freelance writer in Grand Rapids who covered the crime for the local papers.
I was making phone calls to everybody, too.
As the years went by and the case went cold, rumors swirled. Was it local kids? An unscrupulous fan? The shoe's owner looking for an insurance payout?
Inside job, because it just seemed like there were too many things that went awry that night. So there were lots of different speculations.
You know, ruby slippers.
Brian Manson is an investigator with the Grand Rapids Police Department who chased several ruby slipper leads.
And all of a sudden he's like, "You're not going to believe it."
Once staking out a house in the woods where he found this pair of high heels covered in glitter.
I see it says made in China, so I was kind of mad.
But another lead that Matson worked ended up cracking the case. In 2018, 13 years after the heist, the shoes were recovered during an FBI sting operation in Minneapolis. But the first indictment wouldn't come for 5 more years. So who were the alleged criminal masterminds that eluded the law for almost 2 decades? 2 buddies named Terry and Jerry, career criminals who decided to team up for one last score, both in ill health by the time they showed up to court.
You got now these 2 older guys, kind of crusty, little buggers. It doesn't fit the story of what we've speculated on.
Terry Martin, who lives in Grand Rapids, claimed in court he mistakenly thought the shoes were made of real rubies.
I believe that they got something that was too hot to move, and they were very specific, they were identifiable, so then they had to sit on them.
And so the slippers sat, allegedly in Jerry Soliterman's backyard near Minneapolis, buried for years in a plastic box.
I think that clearly the ruby slippers are among the most iconic and valuable pieces of movie memorabilia.
Ryan Lintelman is the curator of the entertainment collection at the National Museum of American History, where the FBI brought the shoes for authentication. Lintelman's team compared them to another pair of ruby slippers the museum owns.
And the real smoking gun was a missing stone from one of the bows that had been replaced during production with a clear stone that was painted red, a detail that had never been published about the ruby slippers before. Not even the most skilled forger would know to do that.
Lintelman says the Smithsonian slippers, one of 4 pairs known to exist, are one of its most popular items. seen by more than 100 million people over the years.
I think people bring a lot of personal memories and love of Hollywood film.
Follow the yellow brick road.
But I think they also bring this sort of interest in Dorothy's journey and the way that that's played out in their lives.
In March, the stolen pair were reunited with their owner, Michael Shaw, who decided to put them up for auction.
This is Judy.
Janie Heights, the current executive director of the Judy Garland Museum, is raising money to make a bid, saying for the ruby slippers, there's no place like home.
Having a pair of ruby slippers in her hometown where she was happy as a child would be a good Hollywood happy ending to this saga of the ruby slippers.
The slippers are estimated to be worth more than $3 million, and online bidding, which started on November 1st, is already nearing $1 million.
It's definitely an uphill battle, but dreams really do come true.
The museum is accepting donations in person and on its website, and Heights is approaching big dollar donors across the country. The state of Minnesota has even pledged $100,000, with Governor Tim Walz promising 24/7 Ocean's 11 proof security.
Tap your heels together 3 times.
They have a power that is mythical. Even if we aren't successful at the auction, perhaps someone will donate them someday. We could be surprised.
Bidding for the ruby slippers will end at a live auction in Dallas on December 7th. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Megan Thompson in Grand Rapids, Minnesota.